Hey everybody, Miss Dietrich here. We're taking a look at question number 1 from the L31. Select 3 sentences about the volume of this rectangular prism that are true. And the first thing you should probably do is count out the number of cubes. We have 8 going this way, 4 going this way, and 3 going back. And if we apply that to the formula length times width times height, we end up getting 96 cubes. Now the strategy that I recommend for figuring out which 3 we're going to pick is the idea of proportional reasoning. And if we plug this into our proportion, because in class we studied how we would use how many full cubes and how many partial cubes, because these are all partial units, right? 1/8, 1/6, 1/4, 1/3. They're all less than 1. So we would want to think about what these values are cubed. We want to cube all these values of the partial inch cube for each one. All right, so I put these in order. We have 1/2 cubed would be a half times a half times a half, or 1/8. If we cube a third, that's 1/3 times 1/3 times 1/3. We get 1/27. A fourth cube is 1/64, and so on. We're going to take these and think of them as ratios and plug them into our proportion. Now if we look at choice A rather, it says if each cube has edges of 1/8, so we're looking at this one now, the 1 over 512. So that means, let's think about what that actually means. That means that for every 1 cube, so let's just take this little cube right here. See that one in the corner? That means that we would need 512 of the 1/8 cubes to fill into that spot. And if we have 96 cubes, then if we're interested in the actual cubic inches, then we would multiply that by 96. But because of the way this question is worded, we have to use proportional reasoning. All right, so now let's proceed with solving for f, or full cubes. Let's move this off to the side. All right, now if we use cross products, we have 1 times 96 would be 96. And the other cross product, I'll do it in blue, would be 512 times f. The coefficient is 512. That's what we want to divide both sides of the equation by to solve. And the 512s cancel out, and we'll bring down the f. So this is full cubes, full unit cubes. Now this, see how this is not an improper fraction? It's a fraction. And really what we need to do is we need to simplify it to see if we get this. Now if we simplify that, we would want to think what might be the GCF of 96 and 512. So since we're getting 3 here as a numerator, let's look to see what 96 divided by 3 is, and then that might be our GCF. All right, so we're getting 32. Now let's think about that number, because we're going to clone that number. And we're also going to clone, actually let me just write this over again. We're speculating that might be the GCF of 96 and 512. So we're going to try to divide both of these values by that to see if we get this. All right, so we already know that 96 divided by 32, we're already expecting to get 3. Let me move this down just a bit. Put a fraction bar. All right, so 512 divided by 32, is it 16? Let's find out. Let's clear it. 512 divided by 32 equals, and we do get 16. All right, so we just found out that choice A is a contender. We have to pick 3. We found 1. Let's circle it. All right, now when we're ready to explore the second one that we're going to pick, let's erase all this and all of this. Now the second one, they're talking about 1/16. 1/16. Oops, I erased that 3. Let's put that back. Or I'm sorry, 1/6. So let's look at our value here. That means instead of putting 1 over 512, we're going to put 1 over 216. And you're going to solve it the same way. We're going to do 1 times 96 is 96. 216f. We're going to divide by 216, because that's the coefficient. And this will cancel out, and we're going to bring down the f.